Hi, welcome to another craft video from the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library. I'm Cheryl and I'm in charge of the craft kits at the main library. And today's video is to accompany a craft kit that we'll be giving out at the main library starting February 1st, 2023. And if you don't have a kit or you're watching this later and just want to use this as a tutorial, then I'll tell you everything you need to make this with supplies you buy at any craft store. So today's craft is going to be this Valentine's Day vase and branch decoration. So you see, you'll make this vase with tissue paper hearts, and you have branches with hanging hearts to go on it. And everything you need to make this craft is going to be in the kit. So I'll tell you what's in the kit right now. Okay, so what you'll have in the kit, or what you'll need to buy if you don't have the kit, is a small smooth-sided bud vase. You will want to wash and dry this with soap and water, or wipe it down with rubbing alcohol to avoid anything that's going to make the decoupage glue not stick. You will have a container of decoupage glue. You won't need very much, so these are probably only going to be filled about halfway, so that's 1 ounce. You'll need a foam brush. We'll have various colors of tissue paper hearts cut out. You will also have about 10 to 15 pieces of yarn. This is going to be used to tie the hearts onto the stems. These are cut about 7 inches. Once you tie them on how you want, you can cut off any extra. And then you will have a bunch of scrapbook paper hearts in 2 different sizes. Now these hearts, the tissue paper ones, are what we're going to use to decorate the outside of the vase. The scrapbook paper ones we're going to glue on here, and we're going to hang them from the stems. So that's the difference between those two. You will also have some stems. I get these from Silk Flowers. You can buy stems like this, or you can use up your Silk Flowers and save the stems. Now some of these will have wire in them. You may have several of these. If they have wire in them, you probably want to make them into interesting shapes. And the more you curve them and move them around, the more interesting it looks for having the hearts hang off of. Some of them, like this one, will only have wire up to a certain point, so you might not be able to do that with some of them. So we're going to set aside the package with the scrapbook paper hearts and the yarn. I'm going to deal with that one later, and we're going to use the one with the tissue paper hearts. And I'm just going to put a few out here on my work surface, and this will be more than enough. Now when it comes to working with decoupage glue or anything like that, you can pour it out onto a paper plate. I tend to like to save these lids from takeout containers, and I'll pour it on there. You can pour a little bit on directly onto the vase if you'd like, but I find this is the easiest way to do this. Okay, so what we're going to do is just put a little bit, a very thin layer of glue in one spot. I'm going to just take that, tap that down. Take one, tap it down. Make sure that there's glue underneath it. Tap it down. and you want to work in small sections. And you can do them all straight up and down. I think it looks more interesting if they're at different little jaunty angles. What I like to do is, you'll notice I just kind of, after I put the glue on, I'll just take my corner, tap it on one of the hearts, and stick it down. That way I don't have to touch the tissue paper hearts and put my fingers in the glue. Much easier way to do it. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the decoupage glue and I'm going to just brush a thin layer over the entire vase, being very careful not to tear my tissue paper, because when tissue paper is wet, it gets very, very delicate. Okay, so I've got a nice thin coat over the whole thing now. So I'm going to set this aside to dry. Usually takes about 20-30 minutes to dry completely. And meanwhile, you can get started on the heart dangles. Now, the decoupage glue we're using today is Mod Podge, and it comes in a couple of different finishes, I guess you'd say. There's gloss and then there's matte. The one we're using today is gloss, but if you want your vase to end up with kind of a frosted look, you can always use the matte Mod Podge instead, and that will end up making it frosty. All right, so let's get started on the heart dangles. Okay, I have set that aside to dry. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab the other package with my scrapbook paper hearts and my yarn. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make the dangles that will go on the tree. So we're going to take 2 hearts and we're going to glue them together with the end of a piece of yarn stuck between them, like this. And we're still going to use the decoupage glue for that exact same thing. And it doesn't matter if you have exactly the same pattern. You've got a bunch of different styles here. You can have 2 different kinds to go on the other sides. That's perfectly fine. So we're just going to put a layer of glue on this. We're going to stick the end of the yarn down, and we're going to put the other piece on. And if I can line it up properly, that would be a lot better. So I'm going to set this aside to dry while I continue on and I make as many as I can with how much I've got. Now, one thing I do want to tell you about this part is if you glue the yarn straight this way, your hearts will hang down straight. But you can glue the hearts or the yarn in at an angle like this, and if you do that, your hearts will hang at an angle. It's strictly a matter of personal preference. Okay, so I ended up with 12 hearts, 6 large and 6 small. Of course, if you want more, you can buy any kind of scrapbook paper or construction paper or anything, and just draw a little heart, cut out a little heart, and then trace it around and cut multiples of them and do the exact same thing. So let's see if our vase is dry yet. Okay, so this is what it looks like when it's finished and completely dry. Now, the Mod Podge, the decoupage glue, does show brush strokes, so you will need to be a little careful and try and get all the brush strokes going in the same direction, because you will be able to see them. But see how the colors pop a little bit more once it's dried? Now we're going to start putting it all together. So I've got my finished ones here. So it's going to go in my vase like this. So I'm going to, this one happens to have wire in it, so I can move it around. So I'm going to be bending it here and there, just little ones, little pieces. Now, if you have one of the others that doesn't have wire in it, this step is, of course, optional. Okay. So I like the way that looks. So now I'm going to just start tying. And normally I would just put it in there, set it down, and start tying them on, but that doesn't really look very good on camera from an overhead shot. So I'll show you this way what I'm doing. So I have my dangle heart. So now I'm just going to go through and I'm just going to tie them on in different spots. And you see how it dangles there? Now if you don't like the way that looks up here, you can always just trim off. You can tie it in a knot if you'd like, or you can just tie it singly if you want to take them back off again. So I'm just going to trim off a little bit extra. And I'm just going to go through and do that for all of my hearts that I have. Alright, so that is my tree, or my branches. Now I'll just put it in the vase and let me show you the finished product. Okay, so there is our finished tree with the heart dangles. And you can reuse the vase. You can do the same sort of design and style for any holiday. If you're going to do 4th of July, do it with red, white, and blue stars. Holiday, Christmas, you can do Christmas ornaments or Hanukkah blue and white and silver decorations. You can make an autumn tree with autumn leaves instead of hearts. Whatever shape that you want to cut out of scrapbook paper and tissue paper will work just fine. Thanks for coming to another craft video from the Kansas City, Kansas Public Library. I'll see you next time. Bye.